So today I was asked to speak about the sugya of bosses, and it's almost impossible to speak about such a broad and gewaltige sugya in a short shiur, and especially today, to my dismay, I need to be makatzer because I need to get back to speak to the Avreichim in my koilom. But fundamentally, there's a very choshev siman in Minchas Osha Masechet Shabbos siman nun Weiss. And Minchas Osha Masechet Shabbos, like all the other Minchas Osha Masechtes, are not really geared to halacha l'maaseh, but more biurei sugis. But the sugis of muktzah, by their very nature, are halachadik sugis. So I definitely do deal there with halacha, but not with halacha psuko. And at the beginning of the siman nun Beis Minchas Osha Shabbos, I write there are two different ways to understand the Yesoid Adin of Muktzah of Bosses L'Dover Ha'osel. Is it because the Bosses is a tofel to the Issa that is Al Gabo, and that is Rashi? Could I have a small Shabbos Gemara maybe? So Rashi Daf Mem Zayin Omed Aleph twice. In the first Rashi on the Amud, regarding Ner Hashem and V'Psila, the Kula V'Bosses L'Dover Ha'osur, Rashi explains Kula V'Bosses L'Shalheves U'Bihai Muktzah Moed Reb Shimon Shakli Tofel L'Shalheves Akli Tofel L'Shalheves Ba'oid Aboy. And Rashi writes the same in the Hemshech HaSugya regarding Mitish Yeshol of Mois, Priloi, the klinas a bosses laeven v'tfeilaloi v'botel toires kli didei. Because the kli is a tofel laeven v'tfeilaloi v'botel toires kli, which means that the bosses is always a tofel to what we put on top of the bosses, or rather, is it haktzor sadas? Because fundamentally, muktzah kishmoike. Muktzah is something shebnei odom maktzim datom. There are various different reasons why they're maktzah das. Kli shemanach delisah, miktzah machmas milus, miktzah machmas mitzvah, miktzah machmas isra. But the muktzah is about the k'sos das. So there are two explanations. Why is a bosser dover osor? Is it because the bosses is a tofel to what is on top and bottle toiles klidi day, or person can't reach the bottom without taking off the top, and therefore maktzeh datoi mimeno. Shin Tasiv Dalet, Machaber brings two opinions. Bosses l'dover ha'osor. In the Gemara, many times we find the difference between shochach and meniach. Shochach doesn't make a bosses at all. Only meniach makes a bosses. According to the first opinion of Shulchan Aruch, Shin Tasiv Dalet, what does meniach mean? Meniach al das she'olav bein hashmoshes. Even though he had intention that after bein hashmoshes, he will somehow remove the Isser from on top, it already is a bosses l'kol Shabbos. Make it as katzur bein hashmoshes, it's katzur l'kol yoyma. Yesh oimrim, meniach is only meniach al das she'kol Shabbos. But if there was intention to remove it in the middle of the Shabbos, it's not a bosses. And I wonder why the Mishnah Berurah in Reish Ayin Zayin writes, B'mokum Pseida, we rely on the Das HaMekel. When the Machaber brings the first opinion b'stoma, and Yesh Oimrim Shecholken, Ikar Aloche Keshita Rishoyna. So for some reason, the Mishnah Berurah Reisha and Zayin writes, "V'amukim say that we could rely on Shita Rishayna l'chayra, even l'chatchila one could rely on Shita Rishayna, and that is Ikar HaHalacha." This machlekes is Rabbeinu Tam and Rashbo in Shabbos Daf Nun Aleph, and that is the sugya of Hatmonas Kedera Begizei Tzemer. So if you're matman Kedera Begizei Tzemer, and you could take off the cover and the Gizei Tzemer Neuflim, why isn't the Kedera a bosses l'doverosa? Because Gizei Tzemer Amuksa. So how could you open the lid of the Gdeira and the Gizet Tzemer will fall down? Why is the Gdeira not a bosses? Rabbeinu Tam says, because his intention was to eat that food, to open the Gdeira and take out the food. So it's not maniach al das yesham kol Shabbos, and therefore it's not a bosses. Rash, Buran, and most other Rishonim disagree with Rabbeinu Tam, and they're right. The reason it's not a bosses is because a bosses is only when the tachten is mishamish elyon. But here the alien is mishamish the tachten, because the Gizet Tzemer are just there to keep the warmth of the Kedera. And therefore, it is not always when Muktzah is on top and Heter is on bottom that there's a din of bosses. It is clear that the Rashba and the Ran maintain bosses is tofel v'botol. So the tachten isn't botol alien when the alien is mishamish the tachten. Rabbeinu Tam's opinion is it's about a K'tzor Sadas. And Kivin Shaloyik Tzadat de Lakol Shabbos, there is no K'tzor Sadas. So why Ner Shemen Vepsila is a bosses? According to Reb Shimon, Yoshev Metzah B'Mosai Tich B'Neiroi, because Ner Shemen Vepsila is not B'Yodoi. But here, by Gizet Tzemer, it's B'Yodoi any minute, whenever he wants to open the Gdeira. And therefore, Haktzor Sadas ein kan, bitul yesh kan, but Haktzor Sadas ein kan. But because the Gizet Tzemer is mishamish as a Gdeira, according to the Rashba, that is the reason it's not a bosses. So the machlekes Rashba and the other Rishonim, two opinions in Shulchan Aruch, depends on how do we define the Ikar Issa of bosses. Thomas Adeshen, Kuf Tzad Gimel, writes, even a bosses by cry as a din of bosses. Mogen Avraham Shin Tasif Kotnvov disagrees with Thomas Adeshen. And the question is, almost in every home, there's some drawer in which people just throw things in without a specific seder. So in the kitchen, at least in my kitchen, there's one drawer in which there might be scissors and screwdrivers and can openers and who knows what else. Yeah, all kind of assorted things. Many of them muktzah, many of them are not muktzah. And what's on top and what is on bottom, there is no particular seder. According to Thomas Adeshen, Afar Piken, that's maniach. It's not shechech, and it's a bosses. Mogen Avraham disagrees. And the Mogen Avraham writes, a cry doesn't make a bosses. A choshev ha'or of the Mishnah Berurah, the drawer definitely is a bosses. If divrei muktzah chashuvim yoysa med divrei heter. Within the drawer, if we assume the drawer is a bosses dover osev or dover mutar, because all bunch of junk in there, and you cannot define what's more choshev. Everything is choshev. And in that case, the drawer is not a bosses. The question is, so if you have a big scissors or a screwdriver on top, and you have some assorted knives and spoons and forks on the bottom, according to Thomas Adeshen, that's a bosses, and it's also, according to Mogen Avraham, it would be mutar. Mishnah Berurah Riches Gedoylo, Sivkot Yud Ches, speaks about the mappa, and the Mogen Avraham speaks about the mappa. So you have a table and a tablecloth, and you have the pamutot, the leichter, the neiros on the tablecloth. And the minhag was that Goyim removed the neiros after they went out. In every Jewish home there were Goyim, and the Goyim usually removed the pamutim after the lights went out. Is the mappa bosel davarosa or not? So the Mogen Avraham Mishnah Berurah maintained that this depends on the machlokes between Mogen Avraham and Thomas Adeshen. According to Thomas Adeshen, it's a bosses. According to Mogen Avraham, it is a cry, because there is no special intention that the nader should be on the mappa. The mappa is just there, and it's a tercha for the person to move the mappa or to cut out the mappa. So the mappa is there, so he puts the nails on top of the mappa. That is akrai. I think this is a chiddush. I would say that's not a krai. A krai is when you throw things into a drawer without any seder, without any kpeda. Sometimes this is on top, sometimes that is on top. The person doesn't even realize what's on top and what is on bottom. But here, with you intentionally, every Shabbos, put the pamutim on the mappa. After piken, the achroina maintain. That is considered a krai.
Many places can see that the mappa it's talking about is not what we call a tablecloth. There was another mappa that they had that would cover that would go on top of that and also cover the challah, and it was bakrai on top of that one.
There is some confusion about the mappa elyoina and mappa techtoina. So Rav Moshe understands that the mappa elyoina is the one that covers the chalas, and therefore he says the mappa techtoina balabach if you don't have a problem, because the mappa techtoina is for the neiras and the chalas, so it's supposed to davar mutar. The mappa elyoina covers the chalas, and the chalas are not on the mappa elyoina. However, sometimes the mappa elyoina is big, and therefore it's just a matter of convenience. You put the pamutim on the mappa elyoina, but still, why would it be considered a krai if that is darkoi? But in these halachas, we're not the lakula. Muktzah is the Rabbanan and the Mishnah Berurah and the Mugan of Rome, and they all say this is the din of a krai. Let it be. So it's a krai. So then the question would be, would the shulchan be mutal taltal? Because the shulchan is supposed to davar osur, which are the pamutim, and a davar mutar, which is the mappa. Shmei Shabbos Yichos writes no. The shulchan definitely would be at basar davar osur. And why is that? Because the pamutim are more important than the mappa. Which brings us to a very confusing question. How do we define importance? So in Shin Yud, in Shulchan Aruch, Kli sheyesh lo davar osur v'davar hamutar, Sif Ches, mutar l'taltaloi. Ukegon shedavar hamutar choshev medavar osur, aval medavar osur choshev medavar hamutar, bot letzloi v'osur l'taltaloi. Stira reisha l'seifa. So the Gemara many times says Duka the reisha and Duka the seifa. The reisha is, when is it mutar? Kegon shedavar hamutar choshev medavar osur. אבל מדבר עושה חושב יויסו מדבר המוטר, באות לצב יוסו. Mishnah Berurah writes, Im shneim shuvim osur. Why? Why would you say shneim osur? Shneim shuvim osur? So he brings a whole list of achronim, Mismei, the Sefer Shabbos, Levushasad, Chayodom, Im shneim shuvim osur. I always apologize when I give a shiur in the Koil. You're far more booky in these halachas than I am. Is anybody choylek on this assumption? I would hope so. Is anybody choylek im shneim shuvim osur? Because the Shatzim brings a gewaltige list of achronim, which are most of the achronim shemapiyam monichayim im shneim shuvim osur. But then, kozva poiskim im lekol oilam ha'eta choshev yosef yedei eino choshev as lina bosid yedei. This is total confusion. As lina bosid yedei. This is totally relative. Reish Ayin Zayin, the Mishnah Berurah writes that the chalas are choshev pamutim, and it doesn't depend. In Dirshu, once again, there's the Chazanish and others. Even though the pamutim probably cost 10 times as much as the chalas, but he wants to eat the chalas, but he also wants to light candles. So would it depend? Lecha Mishnah is Manatayra. Next Shabbos is the Rabbanan. And what if he has other chalas as well? He has bread. He has leftovers from Friday. He has what to eat, lechem mishnah. So why would the chalas be more choshev than the pamutim? He wants to eat the chalas. And what is the din? He didn't have chalas, but he had tomato salad. Or fish. Shabbos stick of fish. And the neiros. Would that be basar davar osur? Is it dafka chalas? Fish would be different. And does it depend whether he has other chalas or he doesn't have other chalas? This is choshev and that's choshev and it's mutar. So basar davar osur and davar mutar. And it definitely doesn't depend what costs more. And when the Mechaber says Im davar amuta choshev ma'usa, it's muta, he means something drastic. Like the Chayyim writes, if you have 10 pennies in your suit, the suit doesn't become a bus l'davar. Like shiur koises. Shiur koises don't make the kois a bus l'davar also. So, my avon in the mechaber would be, if the davar hamutar is a davar choshuv, and the davar osir is not a davar choshuv, doesn't have any chashivas, then it's mutar. The other way around is also. But how do we define what's more choshuv and what's less choshuv? So the Achronim say it definitely doesn't depend on money. What costs more? So what does it depend on? So why are the chalas more choshuv than the neiris? Because the neiris are for yesterday, and the neiris are a dying doilek, and why would the chalas be more choshuv than the neiris? Don't understand. So even the dita al ya'iti omer, if both are choshev, then it's supposed to davar osir davar mutar, and it should be mutar. So we come back to the mappa. So the Shatziyim brings the machlokes and achroinim. It's a long mappa. It's only the chelek mappa that's under the neiris of bosses or davar osir, and the nafkamina would be when the guy takes away the neiris. Can you remove the mappa? Or be metal to that part of the mappa, or would the entire mappa be considered a bosses l'davar also? Mistaver l'choira, one of the two opinions brought in the Shartzi and Sivkot Nechov Dalet and Simin Shin Tes, that it depends on derech ha'olam. So a mappa sometimes you're metal to l'chatzoin. So even when you have the neiris on the mappa, but the other side of the mappa, you could fold, you could lift, you could cover the chalas, you could uncover the chalas, even though it's on top. So it's not a bas l'davar osir l'davar mutar. But why would we relate to the entire mappa as a basis of the logic that the tachtin is tofel and bottle? So it depends what the nature of things are. So we discussed downstairs, walking up the steps, a garbage pail that has a lid. If we assume the garbage pail is a basis, which is shaila bifnei atzma, would the lid be mutar l'taltal? And I would think it's mutar because that's the derech. You open, you close. It's a kal v'chomer of mappa. By mappa, it's a bigger chiddush to say the mappa, which is under the neiris, that is a basis. The other side of the mappa, sometimes you're metaltal. Why would that be in a basis? Kal v'chomer, when we're dealing with the lid of a garbage pail, you're always metaltal, and that's the derech. You take out the garbage pail once a day. You open the lid 100 times a day. So why would the lid be considered as a chelek of the basis?
Talking about the indoor garbage can or the outdoor?
I'm talking, bein time, we're talking about the indoor garbage, which you have in your house. Kal v'chomer, the outdoor garbage pail, lidati, doesn't have a din kli at all. It's like a bor b'karka. And I don't think it's a basis at all. It's yosem arba'am so. Yosem arba'am so doesn't have a din of kli, neither by mikvos, neither by tumas kalim. Same regarding Shabbos. But I think far beyond that, it is something that nobody is metaltal. Only the iriyah comes once a week and you need him enough. That doesn't have a teres kli at all. It's like a bor b'karka. And it doesn't have a din of basis at all. And therefore there's no reason to say that the lid is also l'ftoyach b'lizbor. Even a garbage pail in your house, I think the lid has a din b'fnei atzmoi. And I think both opinions, shenech l'kul agav mappa, because the mappa is one mappa. The question is, could we differentiate between one side and the other side? But the lid is, by its very nature, it's the lid, v'derech l'ftoyach v'lizgor, so that wouldn't be a basis at all. Kal v'choyma, but the outdoor pails, which the dati doesn't have a teres kli, it doesn't become a basis at all. It's just like a pit, like a bor b'karka, which doesn't have a din of a basis.
So we say this by all doors, that were mechalik, the door of the kli from the kli itself?
I'm not sure. We spoke about the door of a car. The door of a car, People open when they get into the car, when they get out of the car, and the car is a Klisa Malachta Le'isa, and probably a Musa Machnas Chosor and Kiss, and that would include the door. The lid of a garbage pail is different. It has a different function. You open and close the garbage pail 100 times a day to throw things in, and therefore it wouldn't be considered as part of the
So
process.
shamish the garbage, no? It's not a shamish the garbage. It functions as a cover for the garbage, and
No. When the heter is lamala, would that be a din of a pusis? So it's mishash. So what if it's mishash? But it's lamala, and it's the derech l'talta l'iftoyach v'lizkor. The Prima Godam has a gavaldige chiddush. And he's a yochid bedavar. And in Minchas Osher, I brought the Prima Godam. It's in the introduction to Mishbetzoi Simen Shin Ches. Introduction to Mishbetzoi Zorav. And it's once again in Sivkot Yudalet. The Prima Godam says, when a person has a leichter, a pamot, and it's not steady, you know, the basis, the foot is somewhat bent, it's not steady. So you put a dvar heter just as a weight to make it more stable. Prima Godam says that dvar heter is a bosses l'dover asa, because it's a tofel l'dover asa. It's on top. It's heter lamala ve'isa lamata, still would be a din of bosses. The one of the Prima Godam is based on the fundamental assumption that bosses is because the bosses is a tofel le'isa v'botel teres kli. But the Prima Godam goes to the extreme. There's a matzav in which the heter is lamala, the isa is lamata. But if the heter is mishamish the isa, it's bottle, and the heter would be a bosses l'doveros. If it's mitzad makzadato, doesn't make sense at all. Not makzadato because he take it off whenever he wants to. But even if it's mitzad bottle, the chiddush would be it's the other way around. It's ipchim estabra. How could a bosses be when the heter is lamala and the isa is lamata? That's the chiddush of Prima Godam. Shmi Shabbos Kirchosa says. According to the Prima Godam, then laundry clips, how are they called?
Clothespins.
Clothespins, atavei krisa in Hebrew, would be a bosses of davar also. Because if the laundry is wet, you know, 100 years ago people had lines and they hung laundry. And they had clothespins. You don't find them only in museums today, or in archaeology. But it was one of my favorite chores when I was a younger man at home. Because you do it automatically and you could think when you're doing it. So that was my job at home. Don't tell anyone. I used to like to do that. And I had certain techniques. So Shmir Shabbos Kosa writes, according to the Prima Godam, there would be muktzah. Lochada has a Toiras Kli. But it's a bosses. But that's a Gavaldik Chutz of Prima Godam. She'enoi misyashav ala leiv, that there's a din of bosses, which is lamala.
Why is it different than that?
So the garbage pail might be a bossa davarosa. But the lid, ledati, is midden bifnei atzma. And it's not a bossa davarosa. So even if the lid is mishamish, the garbage, but it's lamala, it would not have a din of a bossas, kach nere iklani is that. Regarding garbage pails, the likisha atzma, many are makel because of graf shalei. I think that's a questionable svara. When we will discuss graf shalei, one of the suggestions we will discuss is it dechuya or hutra? Is it a heter mishum tzar? Or it's a din, graf shalei, chomer matter, it's not muktzah. So is the heter of graf shalei only b'shas tchak? So today, when everybody has thick plastic bags in their garbage pails, and when the garbage is full, you tie the plastic bag. Why would it be considered a graf sharei? No smell, you see nothing. Why would it be graf sharei? Especially if the garbage pail is in a cabinet under your sink, and when it's closed, you see nothing, you smell nothing. Why would it be considered graf sharei? The reason I am makel taking out garbage is because usually in most garbage pails, at least in my house, there are kelim chad pamim, disposables, sometimes bottles. If you're not green, then you throw bottles into the garbage pail. Many people don't. And you definitely throw paper cups. And a paper cup has a din kli gomer. And a kli gomer, even if it was thrown into the ashba erev Shabbos, is not muktzah. So the fact, because we are such an affluent society, we throw out things because they're so relatively inexpensive. But it happened to me more than once that I threw a paper cup into the garbage, then I realized I don't have any more. And I look into the garbage, it's on the top, still clean. I look around whether nobody sees it. And I reused it. It was clean, and it's a kli gomer.
Doesn't the Beer Halacha say that on Erev Shabbos it's only al tabel daita, and the person can say by plastic cups you don't have a daita anymore?
Yeah, yes, but I think what the
derech lizrik bin agrutai. I think it's a derech lizrik. Some of that was also shimushi, a broken needle. The Gemara says someone would eat it. They take it out of the garbage.
I think butler data is just a fundamental idea. If it's a shever kli, then butler data. If it's a kli gomer, not. I feel that butler data doesn't depend on the mitzias of every. If it's a kli gomer, then it's not muktzah. And sometimes, I mean, the same paper cup is on your table for hours, and you'll use it 10 times. So you threw it into the garbage pail, but sometimes you will, if you have any reason to do so, and it's still clean, you didn't throw other things on top of it, you would take it out. So I think in our garbage pails there are a lot of kelim and a lot of things which are fitting for consumption, and therefore it would be a basar davar also a davar mutar. Is the garbage more choshev? How do we define choshev? No, I don't think it's more choshev. I think a paper cup is more choshev than all the garbage you have in a pail. So those are svaras regarding is a garbage pail a bosis, but I think the lid definitely is not a bosis, even the lid in your house. Kal v'chomer, the lid of the big garbage pails out of your house, which ledati are not a bosis at all. It's like a bor, it's like a pit, and therefore the lid is definitely nidin bifnei atzmoi, and I don't see any issue to open that.
The plastic garbage cans outside, the big ones, not the ones that are built in the dumpsters that have covers.
Same. I think a cover.
It's a kli, it's for sure.
Yeah, that is a kli, but that is no difference in the garbage space you have in your home. And the lid would be nidin bifnei atzmoi. And the lid is not a bosis ledavar also.
The sensors, the weird matisse, the sensors, they have the sensors in the garbage.
Yes. I think the sensors primarily, their primary function is that the trucks, when they come about, which pails should be emptied out and which pails should not be emptied out. And the sensors are active only to notify the people coming to empty out those sensors that this one should not be emptied out yet. But when a pail or these kalim are full of garbage, then the sensor is disactivated. And that is a sofek psikleisha. And we paskin by a sofek psikleisha that it's mutar. And that's a machlokes with the kiva ega and the taz. And the Mishnah Berurah and most other achronim paskin according to the taz that sofek psikleisha would be also. And I wrote in my tshuva, sofek psikleisha depends on what a person could know. It's totally subjective. And if you can't know, it doesn't depend on the science, but the sofek psikleisha is what could I know? And And therefore, I don't think there would be an issur to open that lid because you're activating your sensor. The centers sometimes are pale and sometimes are not pale, and it depends on the volume of the garbage, and therefore it's a suffix secretion, and suffix secretion would be mutar. So we discussed the concept of what is choshev yoiser, which to me is very confusing, and ibediditalia, hayiti omer, everybody agrees it doesn't depend on what costs more money. As we see in Simaresh Ayin Zayin, that the chalas would be more important than the pamutim. And Lanias Daiti, none of the poskim say, are these the only chalas you have? Or we have other chalas? Or is it dafka chalas? Or if it's meat or fish, would it be different? So even in Italia, and that's why I'm very curious, what do other poskim say? Or we need to learn those achroinim b'toich divreihem, because my feeling would be if both are choshev, then it's supposed to be also what?
היוםהשחור, it's just what is Mekon, Shneim Shavin. It says Misad Sfar, it should be.
So many times the Aruch HaShulchan is appealing to me. That's all I could say. Even though the Chayodim and the Beis Meir and Shulchan Aruch HaRav and all the others and the Sefer Shabbos are probably more important poskim than the Aruch HaShulchan. I had some other nekudas which I wrote down, but which I thought would be kedai to discuss. So there are more brings that a person cannot make a bosses, something that is not his, and the Mincha Shabbos is mafalpel. So Isha and Baala, Mashakon says Shakona Baala or a cotton, and to me, it doesn't depend on Baalos. This has nothing to do with the concept of Ein Adam Oisad of Shein Shaloi. That's a sugin of a Dizon Umalad, Alidei Maisa Adam Oisad of Shein Shaloi. Hirbitz Behemis Chavera Vishtachavala, even though it's not a Maisa which is irreversible. Adam Oisad of Shein Shaloi. Every boss is Alidei Maisa. It has nothing to do with the sugin of Ein Adam Oisad of Shein. It's just a svora. Bosses is about yichud, and a person cannot be miyachad the dover she'en shaloi. Bosses is maniach. Shechech, there is no bosses. The concept of bosses is I decided that this should be on top of that, but you cannot decide anything for what doesn't belong to you, and therefore, to me, it depends. B'darkei shalolam. In the kitchen, it is the woman that decides what's on top and what's the bottom, and not the husband. In the study, the husband will decide. In the children's room, it is the child that decides. It makes the bosses. And it always depends on Darkei Shalolam. And therefore, a person invited a guest. And the guest in his room put a cell phone on top of a sefer. Would we say, it's not your sefer, you can't make a bosses. But right now it's my room. And I'm the only one in there, so definitely would have a dinner of bosses. So to me, it doesn't depend on balos, whose money it is and whose chayfetz it is. It depends on whose authority is it, who usually would decide in this place what's on top and what's on bottom.
Could a guy ask for the bima by putting something that would be, let's say, this bima has a credit card machine in one of the drawers. The guy decides this is where the credit card machine goes. Now this drawer became a bosses.
If there's a Sefer Torah on the bima, definitely. But usually, Beinish Moshes, there is no Sefer Torah on the bima. I think an individual definitely can't ask the bima because the bima, the gabbai,
the drawer
is the
itself.
one.
Let's say the drawer itself. Someone wants specific else in that drawer. The guy is right to ask that drawer.
I don't think an individual. It is the gabbai that you. Usually, this drawer is used for the karteset of nedorim and nedovis.
If the gabbai is
what?
If the gabbai is miyachid the place for it, then it would.
Probably. But once again, maybe we would say that the karteset on Shabbos is more important than the credit card. The credit card isn't used on Shabbos, and the karteset is used on Shabbos, like the chalas and the. So I would be making, according to the Yochel.
How could it be telling the use on Shabbos? Wouldn't by definition the davar also never be used on Shabbos? When you eliminate the idea idea of the Isser being Chashav Yosef.
I didn't understand the question.
If we say that it's Tali on use, so which one am I more planning on using on Shabbos? So there would never be a case of a davar ha'aser, a basis of davar ha'aser, and a davar ha'mutter. That would be a problem because by definition, the davar ha'aser I'm never going to use on Shabbos. So then the mutter would always be Chashav Yosef.
Not necessarily, because usually the davar ha'mutter is not something which is designated for use on Shabbos, and definitely not a choshev use, and therefore it would be also. We're only dealing with chalas or something which is designated for use on Shabbos. I mean, that would be the case. In most cases, both the davar ha'aser and the davar ha'mutter is not something that is essential for Shabbos and you need for the Shabbos. And in that case, it would be basar davar ha'aser or davar ha'mutter, depend which would be more important. So we discussed some wichtige halachas, some important halachas today. There are so many more points, but the notes I made are not very mesuder, so I think that'll be it.